Virtue's Last Reward was originally released on the Nintendo 3DS in 2012. I played the PS4 port on the Nonary Games Collection released in 2017. Developed by Spike Chunsoft and written by Kotaro Uchikoshi. It's part visual novel, part escape room, and puzzle game. I'll start by saying that my thoughts on the game are very mixed. The main contributing factor to this is that there are many branching paths that make the story feel too wide. The gameplay requires you to jump back and forth in between different scenarios, and it makes the events feel repetitive and the deaths meaningless. All the while you get drip-fed important details, without real information to make real connections. I never felt like I was learning anything that moved the story forward and answered a question in a meaningful way until the very end of the game. The endings also start to feel like they have less of an impact because of this. The times that you aren't drip-fed important detail is when the game dumps a large amount of exposition, kind of like how the AB game, the game within the game, is played in the beginning, and the ending where they explain why everything in the game happened the way it did. I prefer the pacing on how the prequel game, 999, kind of sprinkled important and relevant information in a digestible way, without bloating the story with too many alternate stories or variations. Zero the Third, the starting antagonist of the game, just came off as annoying to me. The accents, the nicknames, the puns were all just random and unenjoyable. Zero the Third's intro is basically a device to explain a large amount of exposition about how the game works, and then is never seen from again after those intro segments. The game plays around with the theme and storytelling mechanics of 999, however those ideas are not expressed throughout the game like 999, so it comes across as jarring or limited. If you haven't played 999 first, I could imagine the player being more lost and confused. These things really only get cleared up at the very end of the game. I will say, to complement the game, that the themes and stories of 999 and Virtue's Last Reward are both really unique, and they can really only be told in a video game setting. Because the characters are represented in so many different variations of the same story, they start to feel inconsistent and act differently in these different scenarios they're put in. It's usually nothing too drastic, but I feel the likability and personality of the characters start to dilute because of this. As a personal preference, I'm not a fan of the 3D models compared to the 2D artwork of the first game. The 2D art felt more expressive and each animation and pose felt descriptive of what they were feeling, while the 3D models can cause the emotions of the characters that they should be showing to not really match what they're actually displaying. The biggest offender being Clover and Alice with their smile. It's really static throughout a lot of what they say in the game. The game uses fully 3D rooms for its puzzles. The camera and sense of space is conveyed clearly and is less jarring than the fixed angles of 999. In 999, when you select something to interact with, that entire space becomes highlighted so you can clearly tell what things you were interacting with. However, Virtue's Last Reward doesn't include this highlighted section, and can actually make the game suffer and be confusing at times for not having this. I'm really confused why it wasn't a feature in Virtue's Last Reward. The characters' dialogue during the puzzles is welcome, and it achieves having them all be helpful, it keeps you engaged, and it shows off their different personalities. The archives are very well organized and you can find everything you need without too much trouble. The escape room puzzles left me more confused than in the prequel, but they're all a solid experience. If you're playing this on the PS4, the control can sometimes be a little inconvenient. It was originally designed for the 3DS and Vita using touchscreen controls, so certain puzzles need to be really precise and the crosshair doesn't always do it. It's nothing game-breaking or frustrating though. Specifically my opinion of Virtue's Last Reward directly compared to its prequel 999. The character designs and writing of 999 feel much stronger than the ones in Virtue's Last Reward. The story of 999 feels more focused. The story of Virtue's Last Reward is much wider and it spends a lot of time jumping back and forth into drastically different scenarios. The ending of 999 felt more connected and more meaningful to the characters compared to the scope of Virtue's Last Reward's ending. I liked the puzzles in 999 better than Virtue's Last Reward. 999's just felt a bit more organic to me. Progressing through the different stories and working your way to the true ending of Virtue's Last Reward is more straightforward, but it takes a lot longer. My praise for 999's story tree and my critique of Virtue's Last Reward story tree really comes down to the difference in length, the story, and the characters. Virtue's Last Reward is just too long with an unfocused story, and characters I didn't like as much, when I feel 999 did these things much better.